I wasn't supposed to be at the dinner. That's the part one keeps circling back to, like somehow if I hadn't shown up everything would still be fine. Maybe I'd still be living in the version of my life that felt stable even if it wasn't. Maybe I wouldn't have heard the silence between us grow so loud afterward. Maybe I wouldn't be staring at the ceiling at 3:17 a.m. replaying a 5-second moment that changed everything I thought I knew about her. But I was there. And now I can't unsee it. My name's Elwood. I'm 44. I manage infrastructure for a mid-sized logistics company, less exciting than it sounds. I've always preferred systems over people, structure over emotion. That used to work just fine for Marlene and me. She was the color, I was the frame. She brought the sunlight and I kept the lights on. It was a quiet balance and we called it love. We were married for 13 years. That number sounds strange now. It used to mean something. 13 anniversaries, 13 holiday seasons, 13 just because breakfasts. Now it feels like a placeholder, like I was keeping time in someone else's story. She wasn't supposed to be at the dinner either, actually. That morning, she told me she'd skip it, said she'd be too tired after her off-site presentation. I said okay. I always say okay. I don't question her choices. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I stopped being curious somewhere along the way. But at 6:42 p.m., while I was still tying my tie in the mirror, I got a text from a colleague. Looks like you're not the only one flying solo tonight, smirking face. Attached was a blurry photo of Marlene standing near the bar, laughing, dressed in a navy dress I'd never seen before. I don't remember what I felt in that moment. Not anger. Not even confusion. Just something shifting. Like the ground didn't feel level anymore. I showed up half an hour later. No real reason. Just a strange need to see her with my own eyes to make sure the world I thought I lived in still existed. I didn't expect what I found. I didn't expect him. A man I didn't recognize, standing far too close. Marlene leaning in, her hand on his arm. And then the kiss. Small but not uncertain. Familiar. I don't know what made me walk up. Maybe it was disbelief. Maybe it was instinct. But I did. I stood a few feet from them and said, calmly, without raising my voice, "You just ended our marriage." Marlene turned. Her face went pale like she'd seen a ghost. But she didn't apologize. She didn't cry. She looked me right in the eyes and said, "You're wrong." That's what stayed with me the most. Not the kiss. Not the man. But those two words. You're wrong. And for the first time in 13 years I had no idea whether she was. The strangest thing about that night? Nothing exploded. No shouting. No tears. No drinks thrown. No one gasped or turned to stare. He just stepped back. She looked down. And I stood there, watching the people around us continue sipping wine, making small talk, never noticing the moment someone's world had just cracked down the middle. I didn't even know who he was. Still don't. I wasn't introduced. He faded out the second I said what I said. I barely remember his face. What stuck with me was hers. She didn't panic. Didn't reach for me. Didn't beg. She just said I was wrong. And somehow that hit harder than the kiss. I drove home with my hands at 10 and 2 like a teenager who just got his license. Not because I was being cautious, I was just trying to feel something steady. Predictable. Something that still obeyed rules. When I walked in the door, everything looked the same. Our shoes were lined up by the hallway wall. A half-folded blanket rested on the couch. The scent of her jasmine lotion still clung to the bathroom mirror. Nothing looked broken, and that somehow made it worse. I sat at the edge of the bed and waited. For what? I didn't know. An explanation? A fight? An apology I wasn't sure I even wanted? But she didn't come home. Not that night. Instead, I laid down in the bed we shared for 13 years, stared up at the familiar ceiling, and realized I hadn't asked her a single question. I just told her, "You just ended our marriage." She told me, "You're wrong." And we left it there. But the more I sat with it, the more her words started to rot inside me. What exactly was I wrong about? That she kissed another man? That it meant something? That what we had was over? Or was I wrong in thinking we ever really had anything at all? It's a strange kind of pain, not the sharp kind that makes you cry, but the slow kind that makes you question your own memory. I started going back over everything. The last 3 months. The weekends she worked late. The 2 phones she carried. The pause before she said, "I love you" back to me. It was all there. I just didn't want to see it. And now that I had, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't call anyone. Didn't tell a soul. I just wandered the house that night like someone who had misplaced something important. Only it wasn't a thing I lost. It was my sense of place. My belief that I knew the woman I fell asleep next to for over a decade. The sun was already up when I heard the door. Her keys clicked like always. Her heels tapped like always. She walked in like she lived there because she did. But she didn't say a word. She went straight to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, then glanced at me. And I saw it just for a second, a flash of uncertainty in her eyes. Not fear. Not shame. Just something unreadable. She opened her mouth like she was about to speak, then stopped. And instead of demanding answers, instead of saying, "Who is he?" or "How long has this been going on?" I asked the only question that really mattered. "Are you still in this, Marlene?" She looked at me, glass in hand, lips parted. But before she could answer, before I could read her face again, my phone buzzed. It was a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. And it said, simply, "You don't know the half of it." I didn't open the message right away. I just stared at it for a while, letting those 6 words sit there like a second heartbeat. You don't know the half of it. I knew the number vaguely, someone from a job I left 7 years ago. We weren't close, just a guy named Hollis who always had an opinion about everything and never knew when to keep it to himself. We hadn't spoken in years. Not even a birthday text. So the timing felt too deliberate, too precise to be coincidence. But before I could respond, I looked up and saw Marlene watching me from across the kitchen, still holding that half-full glass of water like it grounded her. There was something in her stillness that unsettled me, not fear, not guilt, but calculation. As if she knew something was coming but didn't want to be the one to say it first. The silence between us was no longer just a pause, it had become a language. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized how fluent she was in it. "I need to shower," she said finally, softly. Not as an excuse, not as an apology. Just a sentence that didn't belong in the room where everything else was breaking. I didn't answer. I waited for the door to the bathroom to close behind her before unlocking my phone again. My thumbs hovered for a few seconds, then I typed. "What do you mean?" The reply came fast. "Meet me. I'll explain. You've been left in the dark long enough." Now, let me be clear, I wasn't in the mood for games. I wasn't looking to chase down shadows or play detective in my own life. But something about the flatness in Marlene's voice, the emptiness in her expression, the total lack of panic, it made me feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't worried because she already knew how this would end. And that terrified me more than the kiss ever did. I got in my car without telling her. Drove out to the corner diner mentioned in Hollis's message. A place with vinyl booths and faded menus, the kind of spot you forget existed until you're desperate for somewhere anonymous. He was already there, stirring sugar into coffee like someone pretending to be calm. "Elwood," he said like we were old friends. "You look tired." "I'm not here for small talk," I replied, sitting across from him. "Just tell me what you meant." He exhaled through his nose, then leaned in like what he was about to say might still be dangerous. "I used to work with Marlene before she joined your company. Different firm, same field. She was good, sharp, quick, dangerous when she wanted something." I didn't flinch. "What's your point?" "My point is, she's done this before. Twice that I know of. And maybe more since. Same pattern. Same charm. Gets close to someone who can boost her standing, rides it until it turns personal, then moves on when it doesn't serve her anymore. I watched it happen, Elwood. One of those guys quit the industry entirely. The other left his wife. And the whole time she smiled through it like it was nothing. It didn't land at first. The words made sense but didn't have a place to settle inside me. I just sat there, blinking, like I was waiting for someone to confirm this was a mistake. A misunderstanding. Something that could still be chalked up to bitterness or exaggeration. But then Hollis slid a small folder across the table. Not photos. Not recordings. Just dates, names, and a single line at the bottom. History doesn't always repeat itself, but people often do. I didn't take the folder with me. I left it on the table. I didn't even say goodbye. Driving home, I kept hearing the faint sound of Marlene's laughter in my mind, one specific memory from years ago when we first moved into our house. She'd found a spider in the sink and screamed like it was a monster, then laughed until she cried after I flicked it out the window with a spoon. That laugh had texture to it. Lightness. Truth. But lately, when she laughed, it sounded like someone else had written the line. When I walked back in the house, she was in the bedroom, packing a small overnight bag. I didn't ask where she was going. She didn't offer. "Elle," she said, pausing at the door. "I think we need time." I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I suddenly realized I no longer knew what we needed. What I needed. What I was even holding on to anymore. As the door closed behind her, I noticed her wedding ring still sitting on the bathroom sink. Not hidden. Not left in anger. Just placed. Like a book she finished reading. And standing there, in that quiet room where nothing dramatic had happened, I felt something deeper than heartbreak. I felt erased. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It's full of something else. Like standing in a room after someone has just left, and the air still holds the warmth of them. That's what our house feels like now. Not abandoned, not broken, just waiting for a version of life that isn't coming back. It's been 4 days since Marlene left. No fights, no slammed doors, no accusations. Just a bag, a pause in the doorway, and a look that said everything she didn't want to say out loud. I haven't asked where she's staying. I haven't tracked her down. I haven't called. I think she expected me to. I think part of her wanted me to chase, to ask questions, to make this difficult for her. But I didn't, because I'm still trying to figure out what hurts more. The kiss I saw, or the years before it that now feel like a lie told gently, over time, in small, believable pieces. The nights we sat up planning a future that never came. The inside jokes. The long drives in silence that still felt safe. The little things, her head resting on my shoulder during movies, the way she'd whisper my name in crowded places just to anchor me. Were those moments real, or were they part of the same performance I watched unravel on that rooftop? The more I think about it, the more I realize. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It was gradual. It was quiet. It was in the way she started saying, "I'll be late," without looking me in the eyes. In the way she chose her outfits more carefully, but never for me. In the way her laughter no longer echoed through the house. It just stopped at her lips, half-formed and guarded. There was this one evening, maybe 6 months ago. She was standing by the window after a long day, sipping something cold from a glass, looking out at nothing. I came up behind her, put my hands on her shoulders like I'd done 100 times before, and she flinched, just slightly. Just enough for me to feel it. I didn't say anything then. I just let it go. And maybe that was my mistake. Maybe letting things go over and over is how I ended up here, in a quiet house full of familiar furniture and unfamiliar air. I sat in our backyard last night. No lights, just the sound of wind moving through the leaves. I used to love that silence. Now it feels like it's pressing in on me, trying to tell me something I'm not ready to hear. I haven't told anyone. Not my brother. Not my coworkers. I still wear my wedding ring during video calls. Still pretend I'm whole. But something in me shifted the moment I saw her kiss that man. It wasn't the physical act. It was the ease of it. The casual tilt of her head. The way her body leaned toward his like it had rehearsed it before. She didn't see me at first. But I saw her. And the look on her face. The way she smiled, that wasn't the woman I knew. Or maybe it was, and I just never really knew her at all. The hardest part? I don't feel anger. Not yet. Just something quieter. A kind of grief that doesn't know where to land. Like losing a person who's still alive, still out there, but no longer yours in the way they used to be. And somewhere, I keep hearing her voice say, "You're wrong." I think about that every night. What if I am? Marlene, I'm not writing this to fix anything. I'm not writing it to blame you, or to forgive you, or to say that I understand, because I don't. I'm writing this because last night I tried to say something to myself out loud, and the words just disappeared before they reached my mouth. So maybe if I write it here, quietly, in the space where your name still lives in my hands, I'll finally hear what's been trying to come out. I keep going back to that night. I wonder what I would have seen if I hadn't walked up. If I just stood there in the crowd a little longer. Would you have kissed him again? Would you have held his hand? Would you have told him something you used to tell me? You didn't look guilty, Marlene. You looked free. That's the part one don't know how to explain to myself. Not the kiss. Not the lies. Not even the distance I've been pretending not to feel for the past year. What I can't let go of is the look on your face when you thought no one was watching. It was the same look I remember from our 3rd anniversary when I surprised you with a weekend in Asheville. You had that same spark in your eyes when you looked at the mountains from the balcony and said, "I feel light here." That's what you looked like with him. Light? I used to think I gave you that feeling. I really did. And now I realize maybe I just gave you permission to look for it elsewhere. You said I was wrong. I've turned that phrase over more times than I can count. I try to tell myself you meant it kindly, that maybe you were trying to protect me from what was coming. But you didn't follow it up with anything. You didn't explain. You didn't reach for me. You didn't come home that night because you knew I'd have questions you didn't want to answer. And the truth is, I don't know what I would have done if you had answered them. What do you say when the person you built your life around outgrows the shape of your love? I sit in our home now, surrounded by all the neutral furniture we picked out together, all the framed memories we swore we'd never take down, and I can't decide if it still feels like mine, or like a well-staged lie I didn't see coming. I walk by your side of the bed and feel like I'm intruding. I use your coffee mug and apologize out loud. I sleep on the left side because the right still smells like you, and I don't know if that's comforting or cruel. And I know this part will pass. I know people survive worse. But I also know that some losses are not sharp. They're slow. They keep arriving, piece by piece, in the ordinary moments, when I find your earring under the couch cushion, when your favorite show autoplays without me, when the barista asks how you are and I pretend not to flinch. You've only been gone for a week and it already feels like months. Or maybe it's been years and I just didn't notice until now. I'm not asking for anything with this. I won't send it. You'll never read it. But if one day you wonder whether you broke something or whether it broke on its own, maybe this is the answer. You looked light. I felt hollow. Maybe both things were true. And maybe that's why we're not in the same room anymore. Elwood, you're not going to ask me how I'm doing. That's fine. But if you did, if you sat down across from me and waited like you used to do when you cared, I think this is what I'd tell you. I'm not angry. I thought I would be, but I'm not. I'm something quieter. Something flatter. Like the feeling you get walking into a room and forgetting why you came in. That weightless, aimless pause. That's what I feel like every morning now. You think the kiss was the problem. It wasn't. It was just the moment the lights came on. The moment I realized I'd been eating dinner in a room that was already empty and I just hadn't noticed yet. You were gone long before him. I could feel it. You stopped asking about my day. You stopped laughing at my jokes. You started brushing your teeth with the door closed again, like you didn't want to be seen. I just didn't know those were signs. I thought they were phases. I thought people drifted and returned. But you weren't drifting. You were looking for exits. And maybe I made that easy for you. I kept thinking if I stayed consistent, you'd come back. If I was solid enough, you'd lean on me again. I thought loyalty was enough. I thought love was a matter of endurance. But what I've learned is this: some people don't leave when they stop loving you, they leave when they stop needing you. You needed someone else. Maybe not emotionally. Maybe not even romantically. Just someone who wasn't me. And I get it. I know I'm quiet. Predictable. I know I'm not the kind of man who steals attention. I know I carry calm like a coat I never take off. Maybe that bored you. Maybe it made you feel invisible. I didn't mean for that to happen. But I never stopped showing up. Even when I felt like a background character in your life. Even when I saw you fading and chose not to call it out because I didn't want to scare you further away. I thought giving you space was love. I thought waiting was enough. But now I know better. Now I know that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who make us feel the smallest. And sometimes the worst kind of leaving isn't when someone walks out the door, it's when they stay but take all their warmth with them. You didn't just leave, Marlene. You left while still wearing your smile. You left while calling me Han. You left while holding my hand with one that was already reaching for someone else. So no, I'm not angry. But I am tired. Tired of thinking that if I had just said something sooner, been more, been louder, been anyone but myself, you'd still be here for the right reasons. But you're not. And maybe that's the answer. The first time she forgot to say good night, I stayed up an hour longer just to see if she'd notice. She didn't. The restaurant with the flickering candle. She blew it out halfway through dinner without saying why. We never made it to dessert. A voicemail I never heard ring. Her voice saying, "Hey, I'll be late again. Don't wait up." She said it like she'd already left hours ago. Her hand slipped from mine once while we were crossing a street. She said it was nothing, but she didn't reach back for it. A friend asked how we were doing. I opened my mouth to answer and realized I didn't know. She once kissed me with her eyes open, just for a second, just long enough for me to notice. We bought a new coffee table last fall. She chose the color. I assembled it. 3 days later, I found a receipt in her bag for one that looked just like it, in a different apartment store. She said it was a duplicate order. I believed her. I always believed her. She used to hum when she cooked. I hadn't heard her hum in over a year. We took a photo on our 10th anniversary. Matching coats, smiles wide, sun too bright. But when I looked at the photo a week later, I realized her eyes weren't on the camera. They were looking past me, at something or someone I couldn't see. She once told me that people don't fall out of love. They just stop recognizing each other. I thought it was a quote. I think now, maybe it was a warning. When I saw her kiss him, I didn't feel the shock all at once. Came in waves, like remembering something you never wanted to know, like hearing a sound you've heard 1,000 times, and only now realizing it meant something different. I still make coffee for 2 in the morning, not because I expect her to walk in, just because I don't know what to do with the extra cup. I sleep on the couch now, even though the bed is still made. Not because it's more comfortable, because the couch doesn't smell like her skin. There are no photos of us on my desk anymore, but sometimes I look at the outline where the frame used to sit, and for a second I think the light still remembers what was there. She said I was wrong. Maybe I was. Maybe the kiss wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the moment I finally opened my eyes. I opened the curtains this morning without thinking. The sun doesn't feel like a betrayal anymore. It's strange how something as small as light on a hardwood floor can make you pause. Like the world is still trying to speak to you, gently, even after everything. I make coffee for 1 now. 1 mug. 1 sugar. No assumptions. The space across the table stays empty, and I no longer fill it with thoughts of who should be there. She's gone, and I'm still here. I used to think that meant failure, that being the one left behind meant something had been taken. But now I see it differently. Staying, enduring, surviving love's slow unraveling. That's not weakness. That's how you start over. I got a new bookshelf last week. I built it without instruction. Didn't curse. Didn't rush. Just sat there, fitting pieces together one by one. My fingers moved slower than they used to. I measured everything twice. I stepped back when it was done and thought, this is mine. This shape. This space. This version of me. I don't wait for her anymore. I don't replay the kiss. I don't trace the timeline. I don't hold conversations in my head that will never be spoken out loud. The ring is gone. The framed memories too. But oddly enough, the house feels warmer now. Not emptier, just more honest. And I'm starting to find comfort in honesty. I've been walking more. There's a park a few blocks away I never used to visit. Now I go in the mornings before work. I bring a notebook. Sometimes I write. Sometimes I just watch the trees and remind myself that not all stillness is a sign of decay. Some stillness is healing. There's a woman I've seen a few times there. She walks a terrier with mismatched ears. We nod. We smile. That's all. And that's enough for now. I used to think I needed closure. A reason. A final sentence to stamp on the end of our story. But the truth is, some chapters just stop. They run out of rhythm. And that's okay. What matters now isn't how we ended. It's what I do with the quiet that followed. And today the quiet feels kind.